The early morning skies over Tokyo were painted in muted gray as Jin, the shining star of BTS, stepped onto the rooftop set, his presence wrapped in the quiet resolve of a man carrying more than just the weight of a camera's gaze. The world outside the lens buzzed with life, cars honking, distant murmurs from the street. But on that rooftop, time seemed suspended, waiting for Jin to bring Echo to life. Everything had been meticulously prepared. The director whispered last-minute instructions. Staff hurriedly adjusted microphones. The city's skyline stood majestically in the background, a perfect canvas for Jin's return to the solo stage. Yet amid the mechanical precision, there was a flicker of something raw in Jin's movements, an invisible heaviness clinging to his every breath. Few knew what Jin was carrying that morning. Fewer still would ever know the moment that cracked him wide open. As the crew prepared for the first take, Jin quietly slipped away from the center of the set, pulling out his phone as if seeking a tether to a different world, a world untouched by fame, by schedules, by the relentless churn of expectation. Those who noticed assumed it was a quick call to his team, a check-in with managers. But as Jin walked to a secluded corner, hunched slightly against the wind, some sensed something far more fragile unfolding. In his hands, the phone screen glowed, reflecting a single contact name. Not a manager, not a label executive, but his father. Eyewitnesses described the scene in hushed, reverent tones later. Jin standing there, thumb hesitating over the call button, as if fighting an invisible battle no one else could see. And then, finally, he pressed it. The call rang once, twice, 3 times. Jin's hand tightened around the phone. The camera crew, who had caught sight of him from afar, fell into an uneasy silence, sensing that something far too real, too human, was unraveling before them. The call ended. No answer. Jin's shoulders tensed visibly. He stared at the phone, willing it to ring back, hoping, perhaps, for a second chance to bridge whatever distance years of fame, pressure, and unspoken words had stretched between him and the man who once held his tiny hands and guided him into the world. But the silence remained brutal, unbroken. Witnesses say Jin stood there for what felt like an eternity, the wind playing with the edges of his jacket, the city roaring on beneath him, utterly indifferent to the heartbreak happening above. When he finally turned back toward the set, something in him had changed. His usual soft glow had dimmed into something sharper, more brittle. His smile, when he forced it for the cameras, no longer reached his eyes. And though he carried himself with professionalism as the director shouted, "Action," those closest to the scene knew Jin was singing through heartbreak that no lyric could truly capture. Back online, as photos from the shoot leaked, fans gushed over Jin's breathtaking visuals, unaware of the silent tragedy unfolding behind the scenes. His expressions in the photos, so intense, so soul-stirring, were praised as artistic genius. Few realized that they weren't performances at all. They were real. In interviews leading up to Echo, Jin had hinted at the album being deeply personal and layered with moments that can't be explained easily. No one knew those words would find their roots in a real-time heartbreak, in a missed call that symbolized every moment Jin had swallowed his own pain for the sake of others. Armies who later pieced the timeline together were devastated. The idea that Jin, standing alone on a Tokyo rooftop, reached out to his father and received only silence in return was almost too much to bear. Messages flooded social media. "You deserved better, Jin. I hope one day your father understands the son the world already loves so fiercely." Echo isn't just an album. It's his heartbreaking in slow motion. In the absence of official statements, fans created their own form of comfort. They trended hashtags like #WeHearEugene and #ProudOfEugene, filling the digital void with the love and affirmation Jin was denied that morning. As the days unfolded and teasers for Echo began to surface, each clip tinged with a rawness that set it apart from anything Jin had released before. One thing became painfully, beautifully clear. Echo would not be the polished, safe product the industry might have expected. It would be a living, breathing artifact of pain, resilience, and a longing so deep it could only be captured in songs carved from real wounds. And somewhere in the quiet corners of that rooftop, among cables and floodlights and hurried staff chatter, the echoes of an unanswered call still lingered, proof that even the brightest stars carry shadows no camera can ever fully erase. In the end, Jin didn't let the pain stop him. He poured it into every frame, every note, every whispered lyric meant for those who would listen with their hearts wide open. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of connection he was seeking all along. Not the easy love of the masses, but the fierce, unbreakable love of those who understand that real artistry is born from the moments when no one is watching, even from a father who didn't pick up the phone. The shoot resumed, but something was undeniably different. Even behind the vibrant lights, the energy on set had shifted. Jin, ever the consummate professional, followed through each instruction with precision, yet the usual warmth that he effortlessly radiated had dulled into a quiet, mechanical perfection. The director, initially elated to be working with one of the world's biggest stars, soon sensed the growing tension. During playback, there was a stillness to Jin's performance that no amount of direction could mimic. It wasn't acting. It was real heartbreak bleeding into the frames that a break was called. Jin retreated once again to a secluded part of the rooftop, this time without his phone. This time with nothing but the open Tokyo skyline stretched endlessly before him. Cameramen, technicians, even stylists who had worked with countless celebrities over the years fell into uneasy silence, careful not to disturb him. It was rare, almost sacred, to witness a public figure crack open so vulnerably without even realizing he was being watched. Later, one of the lighting crew, speaking under strict anonymity, would describe the moment with tearful awe. He just stood there, looking so small against the city, like he was carrying a goodbye no one else could see. As Jin gazed into the horizon, memories flooded him. He remembered being 15, walking alone after his first rejected audition, wondering if he'd ever be enough. He remembered the stern words from his father telling him to grow up when he first mentioned wanting to be a singer. And he remembered the countless nights practicing in secret, carrying both the fear of failure and the desperate, aching need to make his family proud. The phone in his pocket vibrated once, just once. But when he checked, it wasn't a call back from his father. It was a manager reminding him of the next take. Jin smiled bitterly. Not a warm smile, but a broken one. The kind you offer the world when you realize some hopes are meant to be carried alone. He slipped the phone back into his jacket without replying and made his way back to set. They began filming again, this time for a particularly emotional sequence meant to capture the raw spirit of Echo. The camera rolled, the music played faintly in the background, and Jin was supposed to walk slowly toward the camera, singing with restrained emotion. But halfway through the take, he broke. Not dramatically. Not in the way actors fake a breakdown for the sake of the shot. It was subtle, devastatingly real. His voice cracked, just once, as he sang the line about calling into silence. His hand trembled ever so slightly. His gaze, meant to be aimed toward the lens, dropped to the ground as if the weight of the morning had finally crushed him. The director, stunned, let the camera keep rolling. Everyone on set instinctively knew this was no longer performance. This was witnessing a soul unravel. And then, in a moment that would never make it to the final music video but would live forever in the memories of those who saw it, Jin wiped a tear from his cheek with the back of his hand, straightened his posture, and forced himself to finish the scene, because that's who he is, not just the idol, not just the voice, but the boy who became a man while carrying the wounds no one else dared to see. Later that night, alone in his hotel room, Jin reportedly wrote a private letter. Not to fans, not to the media, but to his father. Whether he ever sent it, no one knows. But a close friend, who spoke quietly to Korean media under anonymity, shared a haunting detail. Jin said he realized something on that rooftop, that not every story ends with reconciliation. Some stories are beautiful because of the hope we keep alive inside us, even when the other person never comes back. And so, with a heart heavier than any suitcase he carried, Jin completed his filming in Japan. As the days rolled on, promotional materials for Echo began to release. Stunning visuals, breathtaking clips, behind-the-scenes glimpses carefully curated for the public. But hidden behind every polished image was the invisible truth, that the man smiling through the screens was also the man who had stood alone on a rooftop, reaching for a love that stayed silent. And maybe that's why Echo resonates before it's even fully released. Because it isn't just an album. It's a living testimony to the fractures we all carry, the silent calls we all make, the unanswered hopes we refuse to let die. When Jin's Echo finally drops on May 16th, the world will hear melodies and lyrics crafted from artistry.